Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Erin Bureau. So today's guest is Cheryl Cummings, a professional organizer and also a longtime Alaska resident. Professional organizer in the making, I should say. Ever since she was little, she loved organizing. It's led her to pursue a profession that she loves and feels completely rewarded. Her business, Life Organized, has allowed her to bring order and simplicity to her clients' lives. Please welcome to the podcast, Cheryl Cummings. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for getting a hold of me and showing interest in this.
Yeah, we've been back and forth tagged, but we're here and I love it. We're talking about organizing. But before we kind of get into the nuts and bolts, I love the story that you shared with me when we were kind of going back and forth about you organizing your Barbies and your dolls. So please share that story, because this passion for you started when you were young.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of an innate thing for me. I think I've always been organized. I had a Barbie and a Midge doll, and I had a little case for them. And I can think back, and I remember hanging their little clothes in the little case. And then I would even face them in all the same direction, and I'd have the long hanging in one spot and the short hanging in the other. And so it just sort of, I think it expanded from there. I was the one in my house that would take the cupboards apart and put them back together.
You were.
Yes, I was.
Your folks loved you for that, I'm sure.
Yeah,
they were like, where's my stuff? I had this here.
You're right. I think it just was a way for me to bring order to my part of my life in the house.
Well, you also worked in brand and market development for many, many years, too. You're a business graduate. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, you mentioned 30 plus years.
Yeah, I moved up here in 78. I went to UAA, and I graduated in 96. And at the summer I graduated, I looked in the newspaper, and there was an ad for a marketing director for Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation. So I got the job, and I spent 5 years working on the Arctic Yukon Kuskokwim Arctic Keta project. We branded the salmon from Western Alaska. It was struggling against the farm salmon industry, so we were trying to bring some quality and branding to that. And I also organized and planned the Alaska Symphony of Seafood for 4 years, and I worked with a lot of people. We brought in international judges for that. We went from a one-day event to a 3-day event, and it was probably one of the most fun time I've ever had on a job. And then I went from there to Alaska Manufacturers Association, where we did a quality control program, the Q-Check program, and it was also branding and marketing of that program to the industry.
Okay, so Life Organized, which is what you do now, is that what you're currently doing full-time right now?
Yes, I'm a full-time professional organizer.
Tell me about that transition. You were in brand and marketing and doing all this crazy Alaska stuff, and then you're like, I'm going to start getting organized, which kind of pulls you back to what your passion was very young.
It is a leap, but my work was all federally funded, and that money went away from the fisheries development phase, and I ended up selling a line of ladies' clothing called Cabby, and a lot of women are familiar with it. And a lot of the ladies that sell it across the country would do what they call wardrobe editing, and I would take I would talk to you and say, what is your body type and what kinds of things do you like, and I would kind of figure out what your fashion style is, your personal style reflection, and then move from there. And I thought, well, if I do that, we're tearing down their closets and their drawers, why not get it organized? So I started out as the Closet Divas.
Okay.
And then I had a gentleman tell me, he called and had me come do some work for him, and he said, you know what, you need to think about changing your name. I don't need a closet diva, but I do need a professional organizer.
I love that story, yeah. Closet diva, and you got these big guys like, hey.
I know, so it was less appealing to the men, I guess. Most of my clients are women anyway. So I use the tagline like live life organized, dream life organized, experience life organized, and so it sort of evolved, and so the business name became Life Organized.
So when you hear the word organized, I know for me, it can kind of come with a little bit of intimidation, where I think people think you have to be perfect all the time, but I'm feeling like that's not quite the case. So in your opinion, getting organized and feeling organized, you mentioned about bringing simplicity to your clients' lives. What does that mean for you?
Well, I like to keep things very simple, and I think that less is more, quite honestly. We live in a society where we're so we have to have everything that's
Yeah.
out there. We seem like, we've got to have the next best thing. Or with the Costco's and the big box stores, we have to have more than we need. And I come across so much of that. And I think being organized is just having a place for everything and then kind of knowing where it is and then having things go back. Just, keeping it super simple.
Yeah. Well, it's right there. There it is. Keep it
Right,
simple.
right.
Who is your ideal client? Is there an ideal client?
Oh my gosh, I have done everything from crawl spaces to attics, from garages to storage units. I think I would say my ideal client is somebody that's come to the point where they've finally really made the decision. Because I get calls from people, and then I won't hear from them, and then a year later, they have finally decided that this is something I need to do. There's a lot of reasons why people get in their situation, and there's a lot of reasons why people hesitate to call. But just anybody that's willing, I think, I'd say that's probably the most the most important thing is being willing to work. I can't say I've had a bad client.
Yeah, well, that's great. I know you mentioned, too, when you get clients, my question, how do they end up coming to you? You mentioned some of it's, generational, lifestyle, or situational. Kind of explain that a little bit.
So there's two ways that people can get into a situation where things are out of control. And lifestyle is one of them. They've either grown up in the environment of being in a lot of clutter, hoarding, and they can go either one way or the other. They can become very disorganized, the lifestyle they lived in, or they could go completely opposite and become very obsessed about being organized.
Yeah.
And then there's situational, which is a lot of my clients are situational, where something's happened in your life. There's trauma, there's death, there's a divorce, there's a job loss, and people kind of spiral, and things get out of control, and then they start to look around and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't really know how I got here, and how do I get out of here?
Yeah, because it can feel overwhelming. And, people have that sentimental, attachment to things. And I'm sure you deal with clients. It's hard to let some of that stuff go. I know for me, I've got stuff in like a box, and it's just there, and you see it. I'm like, I haven't touched this in a year, but somehow letting it go, you feel like I might need it. How do you kind of navigate when you come to the clients, and do you have a chat with them first? Do you kind of assess it and then go? I'm sure you don't just kind of coming out the gate and we start throwing things away or donating. How do you kind of have that conversation to kind of put them at ease a little bit?
Well, so our session would start by me just explaining how the process is going to go. We're going to start. I walk into a room and I go left to right. We're going to start here and we're going to touch everything, and we're going to move our way around the room. You sort things, keep, donate, toss, and then when we approach things, I tell people as we approach things, decisions have to be made.
Yeah.
The quicker you make a decision, the better. And if we come across something that's sentimental, and there's a lot of it out there, I just sort of put that to the side, because there's always a first pass, and if the job is really large, there is always a first pass, and then we go through it again. The sentimental stuff is really hard because we attach emotions and feelings to it, and that's something that's hard to deal with, and I walk on eggshells with it. I don't want to, make people. I don't have people give away anything that they don't want to give away.
Yeah.
And I have a conversation with them, and you could take a picture of it, or you can, here's a box, everything that you want to keep fits in this box, sort of thing. There's all kinds of little things that you can use, and it's different for every single client. But there are a lot of collectors of things out there.
What's the most odd thing you've come across? I mean, I feel like a Little Mermaid where she sees like a dingle hopper and it's a fork. I mean, I'm sure you've come across just a crazy amount of stuff.
Oh, that's
and probably some stuff that's very valuable.
Oh, lots of valuable stuff. Crazy things. That's funny because I was telling somebody this the other day. The craziest thing I came across was a large collection of lint balls that came out of a dryer in eggshell cartons that the client would use when they would go camping to start fires.
To start fires.
Right.
Okay, I was wondering where
Right,
we're going with that.
right,
Like,
right.
This
Well,
is
I
a
was-
little odd, but okay.
That was my thought when I was like, okay, what's this for?
Makes sense. Live in Alaska. Huh.
Right.
So did they let that go, or did we minimize that?
No,
gap?
we had to keep that.
Okay, we
Yeah,
had to
but
keep
they
that.
did leave. They did let some other things go. So there's a payoff. So the most interesting thing is I tell people you have to open everything. You know, paperwork is
Yeah.
really, really hard. You
yeah.
have to open everything because there's checks, there's cards have money in it. This one woman, she had the basket syndrome, I call it, where people they push everything in baskets and the baskets pile up. They buy new baskets. Well,
Yeah, the junk drawer.
right. Well, it was the junk counter. People were coming over. So she scooped all this stuff in a basket, set it aside, and we were going through baskets. And I pulled out this wad of paper and I opened it up, and it was $4,000 in $20 bills.
Oh my goodness.
And she said, "Oh, I've been looking for that. I wondered where that went."
Oh, wow.
yeah.
I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
What's it like working with families with small children?
I love small children. I think it's super important that children learn how to let go of things and learn how to put their own things away and that sort of thing. In fact, I've just worked with a family this spring, and I always engage them because I don't want to go in the room and organize it all and set it up according to how I feel like it should look.
Yeah.
It's really what they want. And I like getting their opinion because it engages them in the thought process of, oh, this is how things can work. This is where things could go. I like it this way. And if I put something on this shelf, it's not going to work for them because they want it over here
Right.
for some reason. It doesn't really matter. It just needs to be there. So,
Kind of have them feel empowered being involved in the process.
absolutely. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there what age kiddos? I mean, is there too young, not too young? Or is it just kind of, I know kids definitely lead by example, see it by example of their parents doing
And
that.
I'm glad you asked that question because I come from a firm belief that in the home, everybody lives in the home, and everybody should have responsibility in the home. Whether you're a 2-year-old, you could be 1-year-old, and you could take and put your pajamas in the dirty clothes basket. But everybody needs to have a position in the home. Otherwise, it just really kind of lands on one person, and
Yeah.
that person becomes very frustrated, and then things don't get done. And when they get done, there's a lot of anxiety about it and resentment, lots of resentment. So I just think that everybody should have responsibility. You need to teach your children how to be responsible in handling their things and honoring their things, and it makes the house move a lot smoother.
Yeah, and probably when you're done, you sit back and you just probably kind of feel like a weight lifted with things being organized and clean and simple.
Right.
Very,
Yes.
very simple. Let's talk about all the fancy organizing containers and solutions. I got to get this. This has 9 pockets. This has the drawer that pulls out and flips around. Your thoughts on kind of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think if you have a small project, buying some fancy little thing might be okay. But what I run across is people buy all these organization systems, and every system has to be managed, and it may not even fit what your need is. And so I have done a lot of jobs. What I do with storage stuff is I just start piling it in a pile. I stack it, and like the totes and the the drawers and the little shoe racks and the little tiny things that you put pens or something in, and there's so much of it that's never gotten used, and most of it doesn't really work. So it's like the next shiny object. Let's
Yeah.
get it, because if I buy it, then I can be organized. Well, the storage containers and things don't get you organized or they may keep you organized if they're appropriate, but it's a waste of money, and it's also, it sits there and people get a lot of anxiety over it, like, oh, I've
Yeah.
gotten this, and how do I use it? Most people don't know how to use things.
And probably a lot of things you have once you start decluttering in your own home that you can, we can use this for this. So you won't really need to go out and buy things like that.
And that's exactly what I tell people. There's probably things that we can repurpose, save your money. I mean, I had a pantry job where she was very, very specific, and I had a wonderful time buying all the storage stuff for her closet, for her pantry. She wanted it to kind of look like a market, and so
Right.
that was a lot of fun. But that was very specific, and her pantry really kind of needed those things anyway. But that's that's not typically the case.
Gotcha. So also when you're organizing, do you do a whole house? Do you go room by room? Do you do a closet, garage, kitchen? Do you kind of do it all? Is there an organization room you don't touch or don't do?
I've organized everything.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It kind of goes in phases. Like a few years ago, I was in garages and storage units, downsizing. I love to downsize. I love to get the stuff out of there and donate it. I'm doing a lot of full houses these days. I think
Really?
maybe it's just kind of the wave of things. And we started in the kids' rooms, and then we moved to the laundry, the pantry, but it just kind of depends on the client where they really feel the area of the home that's going to serve them better to get organized where they can begin to function. I just started a job, and I would think that the master bedroom would be the place because people relax there. That's where you go to
you're
relax.
there all the time.
Right, and regenerate and stuff. But then again, this couple spends a lot of time it's an open concept in their kitchen, their dining room, living room area. So we started there, and it freed up a lot of space for them. Within one day, we were able to clear over half of the dining room.
Wow.
And they work in there. So now they can work without a lot of clutter around them, so we're going to carry on and finish the house.
I love that.
Yeah.
Which, pandemic, a lot of people had to start working from home. Have you dealt with clients that are kind of now having to do that work-life balance of work from home and live in the home, raise kids, or, how's that dynamic work for you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I had a lot of people, I call them my legacy clients, that called me back during COVID. So we did a lot of that, and it was just sort of going back and redoing things that we'd already done. And I did have one new client, and we spent a lot of time clearing out their home and helping them get organized, and it was a family. But a lot of people pretty much, it's kind of a mix, work from home, and they're going back to work now. They've been back to work.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, kids, when they were having to be at home, were makeshift desks sitting at the dining table.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many folks sometimes feel overwhelmed when they see clutter? Like they know they want to move it, but they can't. They just kind of feel stuck. Do you have any advice for diving into that?
Well, I work with a lot of ADDers, people that have ADD or ADHD, most of them. I'd say 85% of my clients do. And that's something in and of itself, because they get stuck very easy. They want things very quick. Their attention span is very short, so they sort of burn out. But in general, I would say if you're going to start a project, don't look at the big picture. Just kind of, keep the big picture in mind. Like, what do you want it to look like? What's your goal? But then it's like an elephant. You just bite off one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Start with a small area, because I have a 6-hour workday minimum. And there's a lot that can get done in 6 hours, but can you really put your 6 hours into a project by yourself?
Right.
Take, like if you're going to start in your bedroom, do your drawers first. One drawer at a time.
Yeah.
And make those decisions as you're working through, as you're touching every piece. Do I want to donate this? Do I want to give it away? Do I want to keep it? Does it get tossed? And then what I find too is a lot of people, I come into many homes, and they're like, well, this is my donate pile, and this is I got to give back to my friend pile. And I'm like, I'll take the donation with me when I leave today. But that's one of the things I do at the end of the day is I take the donations out of the home, because that doesn't get done. They're done with this part of it, but then it's like, oh my gosh, now I got to do this. So it's really just biting it off a little bit at a time, so you don't get burned out.
Yeah.
And your brain doesn't get fried.
Yeah, even like setting a timer, 15, 20 minutes,
Yes.
just a little bit at a time. I've been guilty of having the donation bag sit in the garage or in the back of my car. But when you give it away, you're like, gosh, that was so easy. That took all of 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I time myself, like, what can I get done when I'm warming my coffee up for 3 minutes? It's like, it's amazing what you can get done. Like just putting things away if they have a home to go to.
Right.
But, yeah.
What do you do if you work with clients and they're organized and they kind of start to feel like they're getting back into that, we're piling on and gathering and collecting stuff again?
I have people that call me back for, for just maintenance sort of thing. I mirror some ADDers, and they don't do, the pretty much I get there and nothing's changed. But while I'm there, they work like little maniacs. I mean, they like work circles around me.
Yeah.
So
just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about back to school. It's coming up. A lot of kids are going to be transitioning in families from the summer vacation and maybe having a little bit more lax and staying up later and things like that, to kind of having to get into these routines. For here in Anchorage, a big change for families is some kids are having to go back to school a little bit earlier. So families are kind of having to shift a lot of things around. What would be your advice as a professional organizer for, families trying to kind of get back into that routine? Kids are going to be having to do homework. And to not feel overwhelmed and that everything's, has to be perfect, but some ideas or advice, tips.
Nothing has to be perfect. Yeah. Let me just start right there.
I
because
love that.
People feel like it has to be exactly perfect. It doesn't. Engage your kids. Go through the things that you're going to need for school. Ask them if they want to keep it. Allow your children to make decisions. That's super, super important. That's where they begin to learn the process of letting go. I would just say, their school supplies, obviously, have them engaged in that with you. Go through what you got from the year before you purchase anything. There's so much waste. And like scissors, and I know there's probably glue tubes that you can continue to use. There's probably paper or notebooks and things that they can use. The colors and the markers, maybe not, but maybe so. Do they need to be brand new?
Right.
There's a lot of pressure to have something brand new, but a lot of families can't afford it. But so there's absolutely nothing wrong with reusing and repurposing things. But have them definitely be involved. There's some really fun little things that you can do, plastic drawers that you can keep their stuff organized in. But setting them up in a place where when they come home from school, they have a place to land their stuff. Right. I think that's super important, because you want to make sure that you can find things when you need them, and like when you're leaving the house the next day.
Yeah. And I'm sure too, you can thrift a lot of fun stuff. I know for my daughter, we would go school shopping. I mean, it's fun to have a cool few new little shirts in here and there, but she's also 8 in elementary. They run around. We went to the thrift store and I let her pick out some stuff. We go home and obviously wash it, but she had a ball putting her little outfits together. And I was like, this is cool. So,
nothing's wrong with thrifting. There's a lot of YouTube's full of thrifters.
Yeah, just don't go overboard, because Cheryl's going to have to come and find you.
That's right.
What do you get out of doing this? What do you love about helping these families and your clients so much? What do you get in return of this?
Well, little story that the family I worked with this spring, their house was totally flip-flopped from bedrooms. And so the last job was to turn this downstairs space, half of it, into one of the boys' rooms. They were going to build walls, but we put these really cool shelves up. And I get this video from the mom, and little guy says, he's on the floor playing chess with his dad, and he said, "Oh, Dad, I have the biggest room in the house. What did I do to deserve this? Tell me and I'll do it again."
Oh.
I just love the joy, and I love the look on people's faces. Their emotions and their whole physical demeanor will change when they see the process, and they see that there is hope at the end. You're not stuck.
Yeah.
You're really not stuck. There is always hope, and it's just starting the process and learning there is a process to getting organized, and it can be repeated. My favorite thing, like, I don't make money off of it, but is if I can go into a home and get people started and launch them, because really that's my goal, is to make people successful in the process and to live an organized life.
Right.
So that's a big joy for me.
I love that. All right. So if folks want to get in touch with you and they're listening, they're like, I need Cheryl in my life, how is the best way that they can contact you?
I have a website. It's lifeorganized.guru, and then they can phone me at my phone number.
Okay. And does it start with kind of like consultation?
I do offer a free consult.
Okay.
But most of my clients are like, let's just book it.
Yeah, they already kind of know where they're at, what they're going, and what they need. Well, that is all great info. I mean, I could talk to you all day about getting organized and things like that.
15.
Go ahead. I was going to give you the last word. Yes. Anything that I didn't mention or ask that you want to just share, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. This is a little something that I did for myself. I lost some car keys, during a garage sale. I set him. Oh no! I put him in a little cabinet right inside my front door, and I said, "Well, I'll just put him here. I'll remember them."
Yeah.
So, after a weekend of garage sales, I couldn't find my keys, so I had to arrange a ride to work and get a key made. So there goes money.
Yeah.
So I just decided that I'm going to take the 15 minutes. I'm going to get out of my car when I get home, and I'm going to take 15 minutes to take care of everything. The biggest thing was putting my keys in a little basket in my laundry room right off the garage. So I call it my first 15, and that first 15 minutes when you get home from any event, it could be shopping, it could be an activity, school, work, whatever. Everybody gets out of the car and everybody puts their stuff away. You put your shoes away, you put your mittens, your gloves, your hats, your coats, your schoolwork, your bag, you put your keys away, groceries, take it all out of the packages, all put it away. And I can tell you in 15 to 20 minutes, it will all be done. And your kids are involved in it. They know where their things go. They know where they are when they need them. And what it does is it sets you up for success for when you leave the home for your next event. It could be you're leaving in a half an hour or whatever. Everybody wants to come home and throw themselves into an activity, get on the phone, get on the games, cook dinner. Everybody's hungry, whatever. But that 15 minutes is probably the best 15 minutes you could spend in your day to set you up for success.
A great tip. The first 15. Yeah, I have my keys that hang right on the side of the door right when I walk in. If they're not there, I'm like, what's happening?
Yes.
So I know that's some great advice. Well, she has her information there, of course, in our web video for this and web article. We'll, of course, hyperlink so folks can get in contact with you. I have a feeling you will be busy. I'm sure you already are busy. So, Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. That was fun to talk with you. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. And don't forget to like and subscribe.